been fired, and it has to do with the 2 games between against Ethiopia and South Africa in the FIFA World Cup qualifiers. And you see on your screen the statement on the website of the Ghana Football Association, ghanafa.org. We'll be going through that, and as you can see on your screen there, the Executive Council of the Ghana Football Association has taken a decision to terminate the appointment of Black Stars coach Charles Akonnor and his 2 assistants. And it goes on to say the Executive Council of the Ghana Football Association has taken a decision to terminate the appointment of Black Stars coach Charles Akonnor and his 2 assistants with immediate effect. This follows the receipt of the technical report from the head coach of the senior national team and the report from the Black Stars Management Committee following Ghana's Group G World Cup qualifying matches against Ethiopia and South Africa. The Executive Council, after considering the 2 reports, have decided to terminate its relationship with the head coach CK Akonnor and the 2 assistants. The Executive Council has formed a 3-member committee made up of Vice President Mark Addo, the Upper East Regional Football Association Chairman Alhaji Salifu Zida, and Dr. Randy Abe to find a head coach and assistant coaches for the Black Stars within the next 24 hours. And this is very important. They are looking at a substantive coach and assistant for the Black Stars within the next 72 hours. And the association wishes CK Akonnor and his assistants the very best in their future endeavors. This has come through in the last 10-15 minutes. And of course, after that game against South Africa, there were rumors that CK Akonnor was going to be fired. But we've, over the last few days, seen it unfold. At a point, it became, quite a murky mix of football and politics. We had the former MP for Tema East, Titus Glover, daring the Ghana Football Association to fire CK Akonnor and urging them to stop interfering in the work of the head coach. But it has appeared that, of course, has fallen on deaf ears, as the FA has moved to fire CK Akonnor. The Black Stars currently have 3 points after the 2 opening matches, and they take on Zimbabwe in the next round of games in October. So CK Akonnor had a mixed, bag in terms of the result as head coach of the Black Stars. Lost against Sudan, lost against Mali, beaten by South Africa, beaten by Morocco. Hasn't been all rosy for him in the last 1 year or so. And of course, there's been doubts about his competence following some of those results, especially when the Black Stars were hammered by Mali in an international friendly. And after the South African game, of course, he was not too clear as to whether he was satisfied with the result of the team. But against Ethiopia, they got a 3-point. Many were worried about the performance. He mentioned that the most important thing was the 3 points and not the performance. If you're just joining us here on the Joy News channel, breaking news: head coach of the Black Stars, CK Akonnor, has been fired by the Ghana Football Association. Joining me is my colleague Oreku Ampofu, who did quite an extensive work on Akonnor, his tenure, especially his call-ups. Oreku, thank you very much for joining me. And this has been coming.
Yeah, it has. And it was a case of choosing to trust your project or to really please the people. And I would have been surprised if this decision wasn't taken, especially looking at the motto of the Ghana Football Association, that's bringing back the love. It was obvious that after the last 2 games against Ethiopia and South Africa, the love was going the other way. And so they had to react, and that's what we've seen today.
I mean, a lot of people will be wondering, has the Ghana Football Association made the right call, though, just in terms of the decision and its timing?
There wasn't a better time, and whoever is coming in now, we expect a new coach in the next 72 hours, would have around a month to be able to look at the reports from CK Akonnor, the technical team, know which players to be able to transfer in terms of call-ups and know who to start looking at. So I think 1 month is good enough. We face a team in Zimbabwe who've also sacked their coach, so it's a similar level, and you don't expect too much from a game against Zimbabwe. So it's a good time. At least the coach would have 2 games against Zimbabwe to be able to try out, and then after that, we'll be able to settle and get ready for the 2 very important games against, Ethiopia, South Africa, and then Ethiopia again.
Now, where does CK stand accused? Because of course you can look at the results, but you also have to consider certain circumstances, surrounding the Black Stars team. It's a team in transition. There's been issues of COVID, for which reason certain players haven't been available. He's had injury problems, to certain key players and things like that. Where does CK stand accused? For which reason the FA is in the right to fire him?
I think he dug his own grave, and that's just how the world works. In football and in sport, you deal with a lot of emotions, and so as a manager, it's in your best interest to ensure that you manage the interest and the emotions of the fans. The fans are those who control the game as things do stand in modern day football. And so you take a look at CK Akonnor, his first couple of interviews when he came in, he made 2 promises, if I remember. He assured Ghanaians of entertaining football that he branded as agroball. And then number 2, he said he would have a narrow sample size in terms of the squad selections, and we'll just take you through that data research quite shortly. But he also said that he would have a 40-man pool that he would call from.
Right.
And that way he'd be able to implement the agroball easily. Now it's been 20 months, and Ghanaians are only going to hold you accountable for what you said.
For a team in transition, does it not stand to reason that you cast the net wider? Granted that he was thinking that he was going to work with 40 players, but isn't it possible that, being hit with the reality that there's a team in transition, I need to cast my net wider, forces him to expand that pool?
Well, maybe that discussion should have been had with the technical directorate of the GFA and whoever is in charge of the call-ups. But unfortunately, that wasn't had. And what we've seen is just compounding in terms of the players being called. Fine, 40 players is not that large if you really take into context, looking at the year that we've had in terms of COVID-19 and injuries that he suffered. And who knows, there've always been breakout stars. No one knew that Kamaldeen Sulemana would develop so quickly in 2 years. And so he could jump into that pool. But when you look at 40 and 75, Hans, I'm looking at an increase of almost 50%. And that doesn't look too good, for someone who was so adamant about the pool size that he was talking about. And he actually said that it would be difficult for players to break into it. And that even if you play in Manchester United, you would have to prove why you are good before you can break into the pool. So it was his words that ended up coming back to bite him.
I'll come back to you, Rick. If you're just joining us here on the Joy News channel, breaking news in the last 20 minutes, head coach of the senior national team, the Black Stars, CK Akonnor, has been fired by the Ghana Football Association, and it comes after the FA says it took delivery of CK Akonnor's technical report after the Black Stars game against Ethiopia and South Africa, and also the report of the Black Stars Management Committee. In the meantime, a 3-member committee have been tasked to find a substantive coach for an assistant for the Black Stars in the next 72 hours. That is what we've gathered so far per the statement from the Ghana Football Association. Now, we've talked about the call-ups, we've talked about whether the FA is in the right to have made a call in the decision and the timing. 72 hours. Is that enough time to find a head coach, a competent one for that matter, for the Black Stars?
My question is, why the rush? We don't play Zimbabwe next week. We don't play them in 2 weeks. We don't even play them in 3 weeks. So why are you going to limit a 3-man committee to just 72 hours? That's just another recipe for a disaster. And what you want to ensure is that there is no continuation in terms of making a wrong decision, and you make sure that you appease the people and actually going for the right man when you sack someone who you think is incompetent. Because what's going to happen is that if you rush and take yet another bad decision and take someone whose technical vision is not aligned to what you expect from the Black Stars, you're only going to retrogress more, and guess what? Make the Black Stars job more unattractive. And that way, you're not even going to get bigger names anymore. So I don't see why there's a time stamp on that. I thought they would have the liberty to at least work around and get the best coaches. Because, Hans, realistically speaking, how many top coaches are available at this
And I was
point?
actually coming to that in terms of options for head coach of the Black Stars. I mean, there's always going to be the debate about whether it's going to be a local coach or an expatriate. First up, where do we go? Do we go in for an expatriate? Do we stick with a local coach? If it's a local coach, first of all, what are the options for local coaches?
So it's a difficult one, but you cannot look beyond Heart of Oak's Samuel Boadu as to whether he's ready for the job. That's a question for another day. But if you look at the local scene, I think with what he has achieved in the past year,
He's a top dog now.
he is probably the next in line. But I don't think he's ready personally. And even if they were to go down, the local or the locally based direction, we've had names like Salastete who has more experience. If you want to go for form, you can go for Samuel Boadu, as to whether he has the temperament to manage national team football. It remains to be seen. But I think options are limited locally. And it's not even about the options anymore, but it's about the precedent and the impression that CK Akonnor has set. After this abysmal performance in 20 months where we have nothing in performance or results, no one is going to go in this direction again. And this almost feels like a stopgap solution. And you want to go for someone who is trusted because in 5 months you're going to play the Africa Cup of Nations.
So we change course from a local coach to a foreign coach, you reckon?
That I think they'll be more skewed towards that at this point.
What are the options again? I mean, the top dogs that we know are unavailable. Hervé Renard is unavailable. Hugo Bruce, he's doing his own thing with South Africa. He was rumored as one of the candidates for the job that CK took. Who can we call on in 72 hours?
It's definitely not going to be Antonio Conte, right?
Most definitely.
But yeah, if I was to think of top coaches available, he comes to mind. But I don't foresee him coming to the Black Stars. But the thing about sacking a coach at this time, and another downside is that usually when you're sacking a coach, you have an idea of who you're going for. I don't think the FA had a clue. And that's why they probably set up this three-man committee. Now, unfortunately, we've heard, or I can exclusively confirm that the Ghana Football Association, before they appointed CK Akonnor, reached out to George Boateng, who's the youth coach for Aston Villa. He placed some requirements ahead of the FA, and the FA asked for more time, and he also asked for more time. As to whether they will go back to George was interested in the job, but he felt that certain things had to change and change drastically.
Okay.
I know
Do we know what specifically he required to change?
A lot of things in terms of, but one thing that stood out from the conversation that we had was he said we have to go into a point of retrospection as a nation. Every big country has gone through that. Italy have gone through it. Brazil have gone through it. Germany have gone through it. We need to understand that we aren't a top nation anymore. And so when you are going into next year's AFCON, do not expect to bring the trophy home. Instead, you want to see a base and a performance and a style of play being integrated or being initiated into these boys. So what he wanted was security to be able to build something in the next 2 years and to be able to, have control of the call-ups, have, quite a lot. I cannot review everything.
Of course. So we are looking at security in terms of a long-term project, which will require a long-term contract for him, non-interference in the job that he's going to have to do, and of course, maybe that free hand, like we've mentioned, and the non-interference as well. So those basically are two things that George Boateng would be looking for. Beyond George, we understand that Marcel Desailly has been approached in the past. Should we go knock on his door?
That's a difficult one, actually. And I know that Marseille is one person who loves his football. And he's never hidden his love for Ghana as well. But in terms of experience, personally, I do not think he's in the right place. As a coach, to be able to, handle this job. Because what CK has done is to put this in a very, very delicate point. Now, it's almost as if the Black Stars job is on a tipping scale. One wrong move, and we fall back so badly that we need at least 5 years to climb back up.
Right.
As things do stand, we have the tools, we have the players, we still have some pedigree because we've not embarrassed ourselves in a national tournament. So we've not fallen that badly. But whoever is coming has to maintain a certain level, at least qualify to the knockout round of the Africa Cup of Nations and rub some shoulders with the big guys.
It's interesting the point you made because I've seen the Black Stars fall into ground zero. It reminds me of 1998 when we failed to qualify for the FIFA World Cup and then went on to Burkina Faso 98, the Africa Cup of Nations, and got eliminated in the group stage. So these are echoes of that. And I guess the point you're making is that whoever we appoint, we need to get it absolutely right. Otherwise, we are hitting ground zero.
We are. And there's one man available, one man who would ring a lot of bells in the minds of Ghanaians, Milovan Rajevac.
Okay.
He was with the Thailand national team a couple of years ago, a year and a half ago, and he got relieved of his duty. Since then, we've not really heard a lot about him. So we know that he's helped us once. Maybe if it's an emergency job, he could possibly be ringed again. But we've seen the Ghanaian national team have a lot of successes under Serbian coaches just about 10, 15 years ago. And so that could be, a contingency plan as to whoever the the management committee see as their primary target.
Right. If you're just joining us here on the Joy News channel, breaking news: the Ghana Football Association have terminated the appointment of Black Stars head coach CK Akonnor. And speaking of CK, we take a look at the nature of his call-ups, the dynamics of his call-ups over the period that he's been in charge. And we did mention that he talked about drawing his squad for various assignments from a pool of 40 players. And by the time, we were done with that South Africa game, he had called up 75 different players. Now, for goalkeepers, you see on your screen, he's called up Richard Ofori of Maritzburg United. He's called up Razak Abalora of Asante Kotoko. He called up Accra Hearts of goalkeeper Richard Attad, Lawrence Atizigi of St. Gallen, Eric Oforientry of Mediama Sporting Club, Danlad Ibrahim of Kotoko, and Manaf Nuruddin of Cas Eupen in Belgium. So those are the goalkeepers that CK Akonnor has called up since he took the job as Black Stars head coach. We've seen a number of other players that in other positions and other dynamics as far as CK Akonnor's call-ups have been concerned. In truth, it's been a bit haphazard in my opinion. And these are the players who have received the most call-ups under CK Akonnor. Richard Ofori has been called up 6 times. Emmanuel Lomote, Nicholas Opoku, Mubarak Wakasu, skipper Andre Ayew, his brother Jordan Ayew, Thomas Partey, Samuel Owusu, Razak Abalora, and Mohamed Kudus have been called up 5 times. They are the players who have been called up the most by CK Akonnor. And for local players, well, it's always, a subject of discussion when a new coach comes. Which local players are going to be getting a look in. Local players had 858 minutes of football under CK Akonnor. And Razak Abalora enjoyed the lion's share of that, of those minutes. 360 minutes he had under CK Akonnor. Ismail Ganiyu of Asante Kotoko also had 197 minutes. Mohamed Fatal Mohamed, Accra Folk skipper, enjoyed 90 minutes against South Africa. Christopher Nete also in there. Christopher Nete with 71 minutes. And there is Kwame Poku with 62 minutes. And Gladson Awako also enjoying 45 minutes. And Justice Blay with 12 minutes. Ibrahim Moru with 20 minutes. And a number of players with no minutes at all. Eric Oforientry, Richard Attad, Danlad Ibrahim, Philemon Bafo, Yusuf Mubarak, Samuel Ashikwe, Joseph Ajay, Fatawi Sahaku, Efriye Barnier, and Joseph Esso with no minutes, and Rashid Norte of Mediama Sporting Club with just 1 minute of football under CK Akonnor. So, Orek, we've gone full circle now. It's been, heating up. It's finally happened. And 72 hours, we expect an announcement of a new Black Stars coach. What attributes would you be looking for in whoever is appointed?
Well, from the excerpts of videos that we saw, from CK Akonnor on the touchline and all that, it looked as if he was cut a frustrated figure. And I don't think mentally he was in the right state. And we've had various allegations as to the amount of control he has over the Black Stars. He publicly confirmed that he was owed about 7 months' salary. And just about a week after that, we had the sports minister, Mustafa Yusuf, saying that when he came in, he paid him this year's salary. So as to whether he's been paid 2020 or not, that wasn't really confirmed. And so in terms of working conditions, I don't think he was given the best, to be fair. Now, it is Ghana. Even with the expatriate coaches, they've never had the best of working conditions. I don't think it's too far from what CK experienced. And so one attribute I'll be looking for is a coach who's resilient and stands his ground. You get that feeling that because, CK is a nice guy, he's friends with everyone, at the end of the day, some decisions might have been imposed on him and he might not have been as outspoken as he could have been. So you want a coach who's resilient, outspoken, stands for what he believes in, and then executes.
That sounds like David Duncan.
Duncan was there, but from the off, he was never really happy being the assistant. It's almost as if he thinks he's more experienced than CK Akonnor, and he was chosen as that.
And really, he is, isn't he? I mean, as a coach,
yeah,
Duncan is more experienced than CK Akonnor.
He is, and we had reports as to confusion, as to what his contributions were required, the required contributions for Duncan, and we had some rumors that he wasn't too happy, just arranging cones at the training ground. He felt he could offer more, and so it led to a difficult relationship between the two. And I think that when you have such a working environment, the players they're not blind. They can see some of these things, and this is all contributes to a very difficult working environment for these players. And I think essentially all these nitty-gritties just.
What are the immediate challenges that need to be dealt with, in terms of building laying a foundation that helps the Black Stars take off smoothly under a new coach? And I'm talking of challenges for the new coach who comes in. What are the immediate, challenges that he needs to deal with?
When Southgate took the England job, he took some extremely difficult situations and said that, look, we are down now, and I'm just going to start afresh with these young guys. I'm going to build a core with very, very young players who work hard, Declan Rice, Mason Mount. And it doesn't matter if, your favorite player or your quote-unquote legend is hit by, some of these moves. And we've seen over the years with the English team how they've been able to develop. Now, I think the immediate threat or the immediate difficulty is how do you make the players and Ghanaians understand that some of these core players that you did see are not really that core to the Black Stars. How are you going to communicate to Andre Ayew that he's no longer going to be playing 90 minutes in a game? He might even risk not getting called up to the senior national team again.
Should that be the case?
That's a difficult one.
No, I mean, we've all seen Andre Ayew play in recent times. We've seen his influence on the Black Stars, at least in those two qualifying games against Ethiopia and South Africa. Are we getting to the point where we have to look him in the face and say, well, you're no longer going to be a starter, you're no longer going to play 90 minutes, or even for some games, you're not going to be, getting called up?
For Andre, I might give him the benefit of the doubt, and that's just because a few months preceding to, these games, we saw what he did against Sudan in Ghana when he got that brace. And so I think he has the ability, and he might have a few tricks left up his sleeves. And the recent performances, you can't blame that on not really being up to speed in terms of match fitness, hadn't really played competitive football since joining outside in the summer. And so I'd want to see him get some minutes and maybe in the next international break really run the rule on his performances. And I think, yeah. So getting some players to understand that they're not that crucial to the national team again. And then number two, really establishing where everyone belongs in this national team. Because we see the situation where Joel Famea is called as a striker, he's played as a winger. Andrea Ayew is called as a winger, he's played as a striker. Jordan is called as a striker, he's played as a left winger. And it's a recurrence in the national team. We saw Alfred Duncan, who's a central midfielder, called, given the chance against South Africa and Cape Coast, he was used as a left winger, had a very bad game, he was subbed off. Guess what? He was never called to the national team again. And so it's been a feature in the national team, and it's almost as if we accommodate some players at the expense of others. And so it's become something that people are used to. Even Kwame Opoku, when he came on, was playing on the wings. And so that's also something that might have to be worked on. And it just feels as if, at this point, if I'm a coach, from what I've seen, I don't think there's an undisputed starter in the Black Stars. Even Thomas Partey hasn't showed me enough. And he's our best player. Mohamed Kudus, he's had a few brilliant moments.
So we should create an environment where every player has to think that I'm fighting for a place.
Yeah.
Right. Oreku, final question to you is this. If you had the authority to appoint the head coach of the Black Stars, who would it be?
That's a lot of responsibility.
I mean, given all the circumstances, one name that you believe can come in, shake things up, get the results, get the team playing the right way, who would it be?
Maybe I have a bias because I know the ideas that George Boateng has. But he is one guy who is very meticulous and pays a lot of attention to detail. He submitted, a more than 50-page report to the FA with his demands. If someone does that, that should tell you the type of job that he wants to do.
So George Boateng for you?
I think I'm more skewed towards him.
Former middle skipper George Boateng is the one that Oreku thinks will be able to do the job. But we'll certainly bring you more on Joy News Prime. And later on Fan Zone, we are supposed to preview the UEFA Champions League games coming up tomorrow. But this is a conversation that we need to continue. We'll be finding out what the options are for Ghana. A 3-member committee have been constituted to find a head coach and assistant for the Black Stars in the next 72 hours. And of course, it comes on the back of the termination of CK's appointment as head coach of the senior national team, the Black Stars. And that decision has been arrived at by the Executive Council of the Ghana Football Association based on the coach's own technical report and the report from the management committee of the Black Stars. So that is the breaking news that we've brought to you. The Ghana Football Association has terminated the appointment of CK Akonnor. It's the end of an era. We're expecting the start of a new era in the next 72 hours per the statement of the Ghana Football Association. Thank you very much, Oreku Ampofo. My name is Hans Mensano, and like I mentioned, we'll bring you more later on Joy News Prime.